So right now, I think the city council and the mayor can work towards a better plan towards affordable housing. Former mayor, I believe 2 mayors ago, did put together a housing study with a committee, an ad hoc committee, and these individuals from our community came up with a plan. Unfortunately, the city council hasn't actually looked at that plan in over a few years together as a whole to make sure that we can come up with solutions that address those issues that were in the plan. As an individual council member, I have reviewed that, and I think that needs to be at the forefront. We talk about growth. We have to have the housing to house the people who are going to be able to move here. It's also important, you talk about jobs earlier, that we have the housing for everyday working individuals. Most recently, the City Council just awarded about $30 million to Lennar Housing for what was supposed to be an affordable and attainable housing project. It's not going to turn out to be that way, unfortunately. Lennar is a multi-billionaire corporation for housing. They do not need Kerrville's taxpayer dollars in order to fund their project. What we should be doing is looking at our government regulations. We, as Kerrville, are one of the places in the entire state of Texas that I hear from a lot of developers and contractors. They do not want to come and build in Kerrville because it is so difficult. The City Council has a responsibility to make sure that our building regulations are less stringent while also keeping the citizens safe. A recent thing, this isn't just commercial developments, this goes to residential as well. A neighbor of mine had to spend the sum of about $300 to $500 in addition to what she wanted to do to put up a carport at her house. She had to get a permit for that and a permit to be her own contractor. These are burdensome regulations that we should not be putting on our citizens and contractors.
Well, I have voted several times to support plans for affordable housing. We did a deal with Lennar, which was controversial and took a lot of planning from the City Council. In fact, the City Council negotiated very hard with Lennar and changed a lot of the parameters of that program. But that's going to yield, what, 400 or 500 new homes for affordable housing. We also worked with Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity is trying a hybrid development system. They're going to have traditional Habitat homes, but right next door they're going to have affordable homes built by private builders. That thinking out of the box really helps provide homes for those who need them. But there's an even additional way we're working on affordable housing. If we increase the supply with Habitat and Lennar, and the demand remains constant or slightly elevated, that might mean that other homes in other neighborhoods won't go up in price so fast. It's simply a matter of supply and demand. We are adding to the supply while hoping that the demand in other areas will slow a bit so that property values won't go up so fast and families can afford that first home.
Housing is a problem in Kerrville, but one aspect that I see of the problem is our taxes. Property taxes, where they are, drive up housing costs. It begins with not just with homeowners, but for people living in apartments and in rental homes. Landlords have to charge additional rents when property taxes go up. Currently, property taxes went up over 30% in the last 2 years. Those kinds of increases are driving up housing costs. And if that is not addressed, all the other ways we might address housing costs are going to be undermined. I think affordable housing should start with affordable, reasonable apartments. Entry-level housing is usually going to be apartments. That's for the first-time person moving out of their parents' house or leaving college and getting their first place they live. Apartments are a much more reasonable expectation for affordable housing, and they're easier on our environment. So as you add apartments, then you reduce the demand by increasing the supply, and then you'll actually see a reduction in entry-level housing based on that. So I think we need to head in a different direction. I think the Lennar development was a disaster. It isn't what the city wanted. The council voted for it, and with much opposition from very experienced people. And I don't think it met the needs of affordable housing, and it cost the city $30 million in future tax income.
Well, it's partnerships that matter, because the need here in Kerrville is so great. The 2050 plan outlined something like 3,000 housing units in the next 20 years. Well, you need big developers for that. And the only way to get developers here is to form partnerships with them. And speaking of Lennar, there's a misconception out there that the taxpayers gave Lennar $30 million, and that's not what happened. What happened was Lennar invested the $30 million in infrastructure, and we are helping them through a TERS. We are helping them to recoup some of that $30 million investment. And so it's those partnerships that are going to help us resolve our housing issues. Also, right now, the apartment complex construction industry is not affordable as well. So we have to work together and do what's best for the community as a whole when it comes to affordable housing.
Well, that's interesting, because I am very much a free market person. I personally don't believe that the city has any reason to be in housing. I believe that the city is best used in providing the services that only a city can provide, which is water, sewer, safety, courts, that sort of thing. Public housing can be provided in any number of ways and by developers. And in fact, interestingly enough, there's many times I've lost on a project because the city gave land to somebody that was going to buy land from me. And so as a developer, you don't really like having to compete against your own city government. And just to be brutally honest, I don't think they're going to be any good at it. The other concern I have is this, is that if you go in for some of these private-public partnerships and housing authorities and all this other kind of stuff, if you start to read the fine print, we very will likely lose control of that facility to some federal agency or some state agency in the event of X, Y, or Z. And I don't know that that's what we want. For me, Kerrville has always been the Goldilocks real estate market. We have a few people always dying off, not to be crass, but it's the reality of it. And then we have people coming in, and so we always just kind of climbed along and climbed along, and we got enough of the climbing along. Well, then here comes commercial jobs, and here comes commercial enterprise, and so on and so forth. Creating a housing authority, in my opinion, is something that we really, really, really have to look at with a very jaundiced eye, I guess would be the best way to put it. Because I see it as a path to putting us into a position that I start to wonder, what is the sustainability of the lifestyle that we all moved here for? I don't think any of us moved here for housing authorities and for projects, quote unquote.